but because anyone who owns a firearm or has shot firearms should have a pretty good grasp on the difference between semi-automatic and fully automatic.
Right. You know if you know. It's one of those situations. So we get into an issue where, like you're saying, systemic. It's you wonder if not just plain ignorance, but there's we could talk for hours about this, but I'll just say very briefly, like there's also, in terms of a lack of general knowledge, there's also a lack of transparency and accountability for when they do get it wrong. And they do have it pointed out. And instead of saying, hey, we got that wrong and we'll do better, it's very often to not even acknowledge it, and to sometimes not even print a correction or an editor's note. Yeah. They just let it stay. Like, so very briefly with the Katie Couric thing, she was dead to rights. She was selectively edited. She was dishonest. And rather than apologize or anything, her and her producers came out and we did it. This is work we're proud of, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like, it's a lack of ability to learn, but also a total lack of humility that goes often hand in hand with the bad reporting.
Yeah. And in her case as well, the producers on that documentary, this is a documentary called, I believe it was Guns Down, something like that. I don't even remember what it was called. I can't. It was a series. She did a series of documentaries, and there were actually issues with the other food-based documentary she did before that, similar issues. I broke all these stories, by the way.
Oh, I remember.
In the day. But, and then I can give you another recent example too. Politico was reporting on the Undetectable Firearms Act getting renewed as part of one of the recent legislative packages that was passed, because it would have expired otherwise. And they reported on it as, a ghost gun ban, or a ban on unserialized firearms being passed. But they're two completely separate policies that don't do even close to the same thing. Renewing the Undetectable Firearms Act just keeps the status quo the way it is, because that has just been around for a long. That's about, basically, it's a law from I believe from the 80s that was about making sure that there's enough metal in a gun for it to set off a metal detector. That's what that law does. And then, banning unserialized guns. Well, that would be a radical departure from current policy. It would basically ban all homemade firearms, and isn't something that exists. There's proposals for it. Some states have done this, but you get the idea. They're completely different policies. And Politico had reported on this win for Democrats by having this ghost gun ban put in, and which like surprised me, because I was like, wait, what? What happened? There's some brand new gun bill got passed that no one talked about until right now. And I thought that they'd probably made this mistake, but they hadn't. This is another classic reporter thing where you don't actually link back to like the text of something. That happens way too often in our industry.
Way too often. That's so
court rulings or the text of bills and stuff. Right. Like, Jesus, just give me a link so I can go. I want to make sure what you're saying is right.
No, I'd like to see the source material. It's very
simple. Link to all that stuff in our reporting. So it's a big emphasis of mine. But regardless, so I tracked this down through my own sources, and I figured out, oh no, they're talking about the Undetectable Firearms Act, not a ghost gun ban or something of that nature, unserialized gun ban, right? And like I repeatedly tweeted at them about this, and no one ever responded or changed anything. And I believe if you still go look, they just have the wrong information.
The language of the report never got amended?
As far as I know. They never changed anything.
And now Politico's readers are worse off for a single report. So it's like, again, it's happened, and I know people know and hear this. I don't understand why there's not a bigger change to get it right.
And I'll say too that going back to the Katie Couric example, this isn't just like about credibility either. It can be legal issues that you run into if you don't know what you're doing when you're reporting on firearms. Because another thing that Katie Couric's producers did on that documentary is that they crossed state lines to buy handguns from private sellers to show that it was like they were trying. This is a common thing that happens. This happens every couple of years. A reporter will go out and try to show that the gun laws are too loose, essentially. And what they actually end up doing is breaking them and committing felonies. I think the most famous example of this, and one that I also use, is David Gregory, Meet the Press, when he was interviewing Wayne LaPierre after the Sandy Hook shooting, he pulled out a 30-round magazine like this, like I'm doing right now here. And he said, why should these be legal? The difference between me doing it right now and when he did it is that right now I'm in Virginia, where these are currently legal. And he was in Washington, D.C., where they were not legal to possess. Sorry, I dropped my magazine. So that's a crime that he committed live on national television. That there was actually a police affidavit written up for his arrest. Now, he never was arrested. And this is also a common thing that happens in these cases. Reporters are often given leniency for accidentally breaking laws. There's one that I had reported on as well, in addition to the Kirk one, where a CBS reporter, they were trying to show that it's easy for somebody without a normal person, the CBS reporter who doesn't have a criminal record, apparently, or any sort of disqualifying records, to own a gun. They were trying to show that it was easy to go in and buy the gun and leave the same day for an AR-15. They did this in Alexandria, Virginia, which at one of my local gun stores at the time. But for some reason, they did this undercover and they didn't tell the gun store what they were doing. And so they lied to the gun store. They lied to the licensed dealer about why they were buying this gun and who it was really for. Because at the end of the report, they're like, she didn't keep this gun. She gave it away and had it disposed of by a third party, which, is a straw purchase. That's like it wasn't actually for her. She wasn't the actual buyer. And that's a huge problem. And she got reported to the ATF for that after I asked the gun store about what had happened. And so there's a credibility issue with not having base level information about firearms when you're going to report on them. There's also a legal issue. If you might, reporters have continually broken the law because they don't understand it when they go to do these stories.
Right. And it also has a knock-on effect in terms of, like you're saying, credibility and trust. They're like, well, who are you writing for? Who are you reporting for? You're reporting for the public. You're doing it for the public interest. And you probably wouldn't be surprised at all. So when we do range day at the NJC, we work with we've worked now with 3 different ranges. And every single time I contact them, kind of out of the blue, introduce myself and explain to them that I want to bring a group of journalists to their range, every single time they kind of back away slowly. And there's a very sort of clear, are you trying to screw me? You're trying to screw me right now, aren't you?
Report gives you an example of why people feel that way.
And that's the thing. I don't blame them. There's no part of me who was like, hey, man. I was like, I get it. I 100% get it. You have been trained at this point to expect that if a reporter comes calling, you think I'm trying to screw you. And in fact, one of them, we'll just speak of them anonymously. One of the ranges, they kind of confided in me. Every time there's a major shooting in the DMV area, for your viewers, the DMV area being the District, Maryland, and Virginia. Every time there's a major shooting, reporters come to them and ask, did you sell the gun? Did you sell the ammo? Every single time. And they're like, we had nothing to do with this, but we're asked it every single time. So yes, when you call us and say you want to bring 20 journalists onto our shooting range, I don't think so. But no, none of them have ever barred us, luckily. I've always explained exactly what we're trying to do. And every single one we've paired with has been fantastic. I've been very pleased.